I still remember that night. My wife stood at the head of our dining table, 8 of her friends watching, and said, "We're setting new rules for this marriage." Her voice was sweet, rehearsed, like she'd been waiting for applause. And she got it. They clapped. They smiled. They thought I'd just sit there, nod, and take it. But I didn't. I stood up, calm, steady, folder in hand. "My rule?" I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I'm done." The room froze. Wine glasses stopped midair. Every woman at that table started backpedaling, fast, because they finally saw the truth. The quiet guy they thought would break just broke free. If you've ever hit that point where peace matters more than pretending, subscribe and follow this story. It only gets better from here. It didn't begin with a declaration. It began with a steering wheel in my hands and a long, quiet road through the suburbs. My old Ford F-150 hummed like it always does, the dashboard throwing a soft orange glow on my knuckles. Country radio faded in and out between commercials for tire shops and roofing specials. 10 hours on the warehouse floor will make your shoulders feel like you're wearing a backpack full of bricks. I rolled down the window, let October air clean out the day. That's all I wanted. A hot shower, a simple dinner, maybe a slice of store-bought cake with too much frosting. Nothing fancy, just peace. But halfway down Maple Grove, the hair on my arm stood up. No traffic, no reason, just a feeling, like walking into a room where the conversation stops. I couldn't name it yet, but my gut did. Tonight wasn't going to be normal. Tonight was going to test me. I turned onto our street, the one with flags on porches and basketball hoops that never move. Porch light on, curtains cracked, the kind of picture you put on a real estate flyer. I killed the engine, grabbed the small bag with a 6-pack, and let the silence sit for one more breath. When I opened the door, the first thing I heard wasn't "Happy Birthday." It was laughter, bright, a little too sharp, from the dining room. The cake sat there, untouched, candles still in the plastic sleeve, like a prop waiting for its cue. I set the 6-pack in the fridge and twisted a cap off a cold one. You know that feeling when a room sizes you up? 8 pairs of eyes did that in a single sweep. Vanessa stood at the head of the table, that camera-ready smile she saves for Instagram. And around her, I caught it, the look friends share when they've already picked a side. Not mine. Vanessa cleared her throat like a teacher calling class to order. "So," she said, loud enough to reach the hallway, "I've been thinking." That's how big conversations start in our house, like she's been writing them in her head for weeks. Phone in hand, bullet points ready. Rule 1. I now ask permission before making plans with my friends. Rule 2. I do more chores without being asked, because a good husband should just know. Rule 3. Contribute more money, because apparently the math in our home doesn't add up unless she says it does. Her friends nodded on cue, like they'd rehearsed this speech on the ride over. I took a pull from the bottle, tasted lime and glass, and set it down before my hand tightened. There's a point where a man can feel his respect slipping through the floorboards. I felt mine sliding. I could have argued right there. I didn't. I let the silence stretch, then said, "Give me 5 minutes," and walked down the hall. You know the smile I'm talking about, the one people wear when they think the scoreboard just clicked in their favor. Vanessa wore it as my footsteps faded toward the office. Harper clapped once, quick, like a coach signaling "good job." Quinn gave that tight nod women give each other when they believe they've solved a problem. They thought I was going to fetch flowers, or maybe an apology shaped like a speech. Our hallway still smells like lemon cleaner and laundry sheets. Halfway down, I paused under the family photos, vacations, Christmas sweaters, the version of us that lived better on paper. I could hear chairs shift, whispers simmer. "What's he doing?" someone asked. "He'll come around," Vanessa said, and that smile followed me like perfume. In my office, the lamp lit a small island of order, metal cabinet, labeled folders, a pen laid perfectly across a legal pad. If they wanted rules, I had something better, proof. I grabbed the 3rd drawer and pulled. The cabinet slid open with that low, honest scrape old metal makes. Drawer 3, I told myself a dozen times this week, like a password to a door only I needed to walk through. Inside, everything sat neat as a mechanic's toolbox. Bank statements by month, credit card logs with yellow highlighter bleeding through, receipts lined up like fence posts. I run a warehouse. Order is how you beat chaos. I stacked what mattered: September deposits, rent payments, insurance, utilities, grocery runs. Then the extras, the boutique splurges, the spa afternoons, the lunches at places you don't go for sandwiches. On top of that, the screenshots, names, times, the little truths phones don't bother to hide. I breathed once, slow, and closed the drawer with my hip. People say a man should fight for his marriage. Maybe. But some fights are about keeping your dignity. I straightened the stack, squared the corners. Tonight works, I told the empty room. Then I carried the truth back to the table. I set the stack down like a referee places the ball. Center of the table, no confusion about what comes next. September, I said, sliding the first bank statement forward. My paycheck after taxes, $2,100 on the 15th. Vanessa's, $740 on the 20th. No heat in my voice, just numbers that don't care who's smiling. I pointed to the transfers that hit like clockwork. Rent, $1,300, paid from my account. Utilities average around $200, also me. Car insurance for both vehicles, $180, again, me. Their eyes moved exactly where the yellow highlighter told them to. I wasn't asking for a medal. I was asking for honesty. The kind most men understand when it's time to balance a checkbook or tell the kid we can't afford spring break this year. I looked up and let it land. So before we talk about new rules, maybe we talk about who's carrying 80% of this house. The wine stopped mid-sip. The room ran out of easy answers. I spread the next layer like cards at a kitchen table after payday. Nordstrom, $470. The downtown boutique, $320. Spa, $215. I kept my tone level, the way you read a grocery list when you know you're already over budget. Then I slid in the regulars that feed a home. Kroger receipts, $150 to $200 a week, all on my card. Gas, oil changes, the boring bills nobody posts on Instagram. I added the insurance stubs, the quarterly water bill, and the line items that never make it into speeches about fairness. The table began to look like a map of where the money actually lives. You could see it in the way the papers overlapped, the essentials buried under the treat-yourself afternoons. Harper's gaze dropped to her wine. She stopped nodding. That's when silence got heavy, like a basement door you don't want to open. We weren't debating feelings anymore. We were following the ink. Then I put the folder down and held up my phone. This part isn't about dollars, I said. It's about time. A screenshot filled the screen. Can't wait to see you Thursday. Same place. From Drew. I tapped the timestamp. Thursday, 2:14 p.m. I was on a 10-hour shift. She told me it was a networking coffee. The air got tight. Vanessa's chair scraped back. That's my privacy, she snapped, voice higher than before. I didn't flinch. This went public when you brought an audience, I answered steady. Another screenshot. Tuesday lunches, Saturday errands, all overlapping my overtime. Men know that pattern, when your schedule becomes someone else's cover. I placed the phone on the stack, face up. This isn't a guess, it's a calendar. The room shifted from smug to careful, like people stepping off ice they thought was solid. Someone whispered, "Who's Drew?" Vanessa didn't answer. She didn't have to. The messages spelled it out better than any speech ever could. "We're just friends," she said, grabbing for the word like a life preserver. I slid the next receipts across the wood. Romano's Bistro, 85, the Copper Table, 92, Harvest Bar, 67. I tapped my credit card number at the top, paid by the guy who was supposedly not contributing enough. A couple of the women pulled their hands back from their glasses, the way people do when a story suddenly costs more than they thought. I pulled up a blurry check-in photo, her smile wide, a highball glass catching candlelight. "If this is friendship, it's an expensive one," I said, "and it's funded by me." That landed. You could hear it. Because every man in this country knows the feel of working a Saturday to make sure the bill's clear, and the insult of learning your overtime bought cocktails for just a friend. I met Vanessa's eyes and asked what I already knew. "You used my money to wine and dine your friend?" The word friend hung there like a dare. I took a breath and reached for the last stack. printouts of group chats and posts, the prettier version of me that had been touring her circle for months. "Here's the story you told," I said. "That I forbid a new couch. Left out the part where the tires were bald and inspection was due." I slid another. "Said I forgot your birthday. Left out the double shift to cover for a coworker's kid in the hospital and the $160 dinner that weekend." Each sheet revealed a familiar trick. Keep the drama, cut the context. I wasn't defending my pride to strangers. I was showing a room what honesty costs when it's chopped into sound bites. The nods around the table changed shape, from agreement to doubt, from doubt to unease. Harper's jaw tightened. Quinn's thumb hovered over her phone, scrolling back through memories that suddenly didn't match. That's when the crowd effect shifted. The audience stopped cheering the performance and started watching the truth. And because truth works best when it's simple, I ended with one page. I laid it on the wood like a dealer sliding the last card. "Consultation summary," I said. My attorney's letterhead at the top, dates highlighted, steps numbered, file Friday, serve Monday, 30 days to move out. No drama in the font, just a plan made by a man who's tired of living on thin ice. I wasn't raising my voice. I wasn't performing. I was choosing. There's a line every husband knows, the one between fixing and losing yourself trying. I'd crossed it months ago. Vanessa stared at the timeline like it might blink first. Her lips moved, but the words got stuck behind shock. I looked at her friends, the same audience that had clapped for new rules. "You wanted clarity?" I said, steady. "Here it is." Then I met her eyes and gave the only sentence that still fit. "There won't be a marriage." The applause didn't come back. Neither did the smile. What I remember next isn't a speech. It's sounds, chair legs scraping against hardwood, the quick little gasp people make when their script runs out. Someone whispered, "I'm sorry," like dropping change in a church plate. Another woman gathered her purse with both hands, eyes fixed anywhere but mine. Half-finished wine tilted, catching the chandelier light, lipstick prints like flags abandoned on a battlefield. The door opened, then closed, opened again, then closed softer, until there were no more heels on the walkway and no more coats pulled from pegs. The house exhaled. The hum of the refrigerator returned. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog barked twice and gave up. I stood there a moment longer, letting the quiet settle, the way dust does when a truck stops moving. Then I locked the deadbolt and turned around. Two people left in a room that had never felt smaller. A wife who wanted rules, and a husband who finally remembered he had choices. The performance was over. I didn't sleep on the couch. I walked down the hall and opened the door I'd been opening in my head for a week. The guest room used to hold holiday boxes and a treadmill that groaned. Now my shirts hung in a neat row, a week's worth of work pants, socks rolled tight in the top drawer. Toothbrush in a cup, razor on a towel, deodorant lined up like soldiers waiting for roll call. I'd left the lamp on low before I went to work, like I'd known I might need the light tonight. I closed the door to the click that says this space is mine, just for now, but mine. I sat on the edge of the bed and listened to pipes settle, the kind of house noises you miss when your head is full of fights. Somewhere outside, a late train laid its horn across the neighborhood. I smiled, dark and tired and free in a way I hadn't felt in years. Happy birthday to me. Morning came like it always does, through the blinds, across the carpet, onto my boots. Coffee grounds, kettle hiss, the ritual that turns a kitchen into a compass. My phone lit up on the counter. 17 missed calls, 34 texts, the notifications stacking like unpaid bills. Apologies, accusations, promises, all the usual colors of a mess pretending to be a rainbow. I took my mug to the window and watched the street wake up. A jogger in a hoodie, a school bus yawning to a stop, a dad wrestling a backpack zipper on the porch. Normal. That's all I wanted. Not victory, not revenge, just quiet that didn't feel like punishment. The phone buzzed again. I turned it face down and let the world be simple for one cup. Men know this move, the one where you choose your peace over the ping. It's not cold. It's survival. I rinsed the mug, grabbed my keys, and left the house without answering a single word. The warehouse greeted me with the music I trust, forklift beeps, pallet wrap crackling, steel shelves talking in little clicks. Guys nodded the way men do, chin up, then down. No questions, just, "Morning, man." I stacked orders, printed labels, lost myself in the math of boxes and weight and space. Work is simple when you respect it. Around lunch, my phone buzzed from the locker. Unknown number. I let it hit voicemail, then buzz again, then a third time. I answered. "This is Paige from Sunset Property Management. Your wife called about breaking the lease early. Are you both planning to vacate?" I could have laughed. "No," I said. "Just her. Lease is in my name." A pause on her end, papers shuffling. She said it was joint. "Check your records," I said, calm. "My signature. My deposit." I hung up and leaned against the cool cinder block, letting the relief move through me like a breeze in a hot shop. Then I texted my attorney. "She's already pushing. Let's move faster." I stepped outside, leaned into the shade by the loading dock, and fired off a message to Raymond. "She's already moving." She called the property manager to break the lease. I followed with a photo of the lease header, my name alone, signature, deposit receipt. He called within a minute. Raymond doesn't waste words. "You have the deed, the lease, and the paper trail," he said. "We'll tighten the timeline." I laid it out quick, like calling audibles at the line. File date, service date, 30-day move-out. "She's testing doors," I said, watching a forklift glide past. "I want them locked." Papers shuffled on his end. Printers always sound like decision machines. "Copy. I'll draft a note to the property manager and push filings," he said. "You'll get a packet by end of day." My shoulders dropped an inch. "One more thing," I added. "If she calls again about the lease, I want you looped." He didn't hesitate. "We'll expedite." That's the sentence a tired man can stand on. That night, the house felt like a bus stop after the last route. She sat on the couch with tissues balled in her fist. "Counseling," she said, voice small. "I found a therapist with Wednesday openings." I stood in the doorway and counted to 5 the way you do when a pipe might burst. "You have 30 days, I said. "Pack what's yours. I'll be respectful. But I'm done pretending we're fixing something you keep breaking." Her chin tipped up. "You're cold." I almost laughed. "No, I'm consistent. You call it control when I ask about a $400 charge, then go silent for 3 days to punish me. That's not partnership. That's training." She paced, grabbed at explanations that had worked before. "It was just lunches, just stress, just—" I raised a hand. "Just enough to kill respect." She stopped. The clock ticked like a metronome nobody wanted. She wiped her eyes. "So that's it?" I met her gaze and gave her the truth. "I want it to end." My phone buzzed as I rinsed a plate. "Hey, this is Quinn. I owe you an apology." I let the water run, then read on. I believed things I shouldn't have. Harper and I went back through messages. A lot doesn't add up. Could we talk? Men don't get many clean apologies. When they come, they feel like a hand offered across a creek. I dried my hands and typed slow. "Corner brew, 11 a.m. tomorrow." 3 dots pulsed. Then, "Thank you. I just want to hear your side without the noise." I thought about all the times I'd swallowed words to keep the peace, how silence had turned into a cage. Maybe this conversation wasn't about clearing my name. Maybe it was about resetting how I let people talk to me. The house was quiet again. I set the phone face up on the counter this time, on purpose. A man needs witnesses when he tells himself the truth. Tomorrow at 11 would do. Near 10, an unknown number lit the screen. I stepped onto the balcony. "This is Ethan." A breath. Then, "It's Drew." He rushed the next part. "We're just friends. She told me you two were basically separated." Streetlights made long ladders on the pavement. "Does your wife know about these friend lunches?" I asked. He stalled in that way men do when they're measuring which truth will cost less. "No," he said finally. "Then they aren't harmless," I answered. "Look, I don't want trouble. I've got kids." I could hear a TV somewhere, a laugh track nobody believed. "Here's the cleanest way out," I said. "Cut contact completely. Block her. Don't meet. Don't text. Don't let my overtime buy another round." Silence stretched until it felt honest. "You're right," he said. "I'm done." The call ended with a click that sounded like a door finding its frame. I stood there another minute and let the night air finish the conversation for both of us. Peace doesn't arrive with a parade. It shows up in small, boring choices. I opened my laptop and pulled up 3 tabs: apartment listings, a simple budget sheet, and a buy-sell page. A 1-bedroom near the warehouse. Cheaper utilities. Month to month to keep options open. I penciled in numbers the way a man lays studs. Straight, level, nothing fancy. Groceries, gas, phone, insurance. Savings first, not last. Then I took photos of what needed to go. The extra TV, the decorative cabinet I never liked, a set of bar stools that wobbled. Posted them with honest descriptions and a fair price. Within minutes, pings rolled in. I boxed the bar stools and felt something I hadn't felt since before all the rules. Air moving through a room that wasn't crowded by someone else's needs. The math worked. The plan worked. More than that, my shoulders did. I closed the laptop and sat back. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't bracing. I was breathing. But peace doesn't stay quiet for long, not when the past still knows your number. The next morning, I showed up 5 minutes early and ordered a black coffee. Corner Brew has those big windows that turn a table into a porch. Sunlight slid across the wood like a clean slate. Harper walked in hugging a folder to her chest the way people carry fragile things. No makeup bravado, just real eyes. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, and sat. She opened the folder without a speech. Screenshots, dates, the same threads I'd seen from the other side. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "I read everything you showed us, then went back through what she told us." She slid one across, a message about me refusing to buy a couch. I nodded. We needed tires. Inspection was due. Harper winced. Another page. Me forgetting a birthday. "Double shift," I said. "Hospital emergency. We went out Saturday." Her shoulders dropped. "I was wrong," she said, steady. Not a performance. Just a sentence that fit. Something in my chest unclenched, like a knot finally finding its end. But the truth always invites company, and not every apology comes clean. Quinn came in with that careful smile people wear to funerals and new beginnings. She ordered a latte, then slid into the chair and pulled out her phone. "I've been scrolling," she said, thumb hovering over a chat from months back. She read a line about how I supposedly chose work over her birthday. I shook my head. "My coworker's kid was in the ER. I covered. We did the nice dinner 2 nights later, the one with the bill I kept." Quinn pinched her lips, remembering. Then she opened another, a claim that I policed spending. "I asked her to contribute," I said. "Groceries, a cell bill, something." We sat with it. You could hear milk frothing behind the bar, plates stacking, regular Saturday noises filling in what pride used to hide. Quinn looked up, eyes clear. "We didn't just believe her," she said. "We enabled her." The words weren't loud, but they landed. You could feel the room tip toward truth, even if it was only our corner. What I didn't know was how far that truth would ripple once it left the cafe. Quinn wrapped both hands around her cup. "My ex tracked my phone," she said, "commented on what I wore, pulled receipts like weapons. I left. Therapy taught me names for it." She met my eyes. "So when Vanessa said you questioned money, I heard alarms." I nodded. "I know men who hide behind providing to control everything, and I want no part of that uniform." "There's a line," I said. "Asking to split groceries isn't the same as telling someone they can't see friends." She nodded back. "We confused asking for contribution with controlling," she said. "We should have asked harder questions." I didn't spike the ball. I let it sit. Most folks only change definitions when a real story makes the old one feel cheap. "So what now?" she asked. "We know now," Harper said quietly, surprising both of us. It wasn't an excuse. It was a switch getting flipped. The room didn't cheer. It didn't need to. Understanding has a sound of its own, like gears finally catching. But gears only turn forward if you're ready to rebuild from the wreck. I took a napkin and drew the simple math that had lived in my head for a year. Paycheck, overtime, bills, then a line labeled down payment. I was saving, I said. Weekends, time and a half. She wanted out of the apartment, said it felt small. I showed them a photo on my phone of a savings balance that crept up like a slow sunrise. I told her the number every month, told her what it meant: a yard, a garage that doesn't flood, a real laundry room. Quinn exhaled. Harper stared at the napkin like it might cry. "And?" Quinn asked. I put the screen away. She said it was never enough. Men know that sentence, the one that empties a tank faster than any commute. It's the sound of running toward a finish line someone keeps moving. I wasn't looking for a trophy, just a partner who'd lace up beside me. Silence took the fourth chair at our table and stayed a while. Some truths don't need sugar. But unfinished houses have echoes, and mine was about to speak again. On the walk home, my phone buzzed. A social post from Vanessa, vague enough to be polite, sharp enough to cut. When you give everything and someone throws it away over one mistake. Hearts poured in. You deserve better. Stay strong, Queen. I stopped at the corner and watched a dad and his daughter race scooters down the sidewalk. Nobody cared about our drama. That's the thing about real life. It refuses to revolve around one person's story. The old me would have typed a reply, lined up facts like bowling pins. Instead, I put the phone back in my pocket. No thread to correct, no comments to chase. The men I respect don't wrestle in the mud. They build, they lift, they leave. At home, I set the phone face down and opened a window. The house breathed. And just when I thought silence would last, the law came calling. If you've ever chosen silence over spectacle because peace pays better in the long run, tap subscribe and stay with me. The next part matters even more. It did matter. The very next morning, my phone lit up with Raymond's number. He didn't small talk. "Let's clean this up," he said. We walked through the paper trail like men checking rafters, the inheritance from my uncle that seeded the apartment, the deed and mortgage with my name alone, every check written from my account. He paused, then gave me the line I didn't know I'd been waiting to hear. "Under state law, that's separate property. She has no claim." The words landed like a floor joist locking into place. Not a victory dance, not a jab, just structure, finally holding. He emailed copies while we were on the phone. Deed, bank records, the note he'd send to her attorney. I pictured the apartment the way I first saw it. Empty rooms, sunlight on bare walls, a place I could afford because a man in my family believed in me. "We keep it simple," Raymond said. "Simple works," I answered, and set the phone down. But simple never stays simple once lawyers start moving paper. Before we hung up, I asked the thing every divorced guy gets asked at the hardware store. "Alimony?" Raymond didn't sigh. He teaches for a living without a classroom. "Possibility exists in theory," he said, "but courts look at need and capacity. She's able to work full-time, has chosen not to. Your income's solid but modest. No kids, shorter marriage. On these facts, continuing support is unlikely." He outlined it in plain English, not loopholes, just the way responsibility actually reads on paper. "Could she try?" I asked. "Sure," he said. "Lawyers try. Judges decide." He let that sit. It's funny how worry shrinks when someone cuts it into facts you can stack. I thought about weekends on a forklift, the down payment fund that grew one overtime shift at a time, and how easily that could have turned into a faucet left running. "We'll respond if needed," he added. "For now, keep your records tight." "Been doing that for months," I said. "Good," he replied. "You're ahead." Ahead, but not clear. The next call would test that. That afternoon, her attorney called with a tone people use when they expect you to haggle. "My client is willing to waive any interest in the apartment for $10,000 and half the household items." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain my feelings. I gave numbers the way a man gives directions. $0, I said. "She can take whatever she personally purchased. I have receipts for what I bought." Paper shuffled. The lawyer tried a softer pitch. "Perhaps we can find middle ground." I looked at the stack on my desk. Bank statements, credit card logs, timestamps on lunches I didn't eat. Middle ground works when both sides built the hill. "That's my offer," I said. "It reflects reality." He let the silence do his thinking. "I'll confer with my client," he said, clipped. "Call me when you have," I answered. I texted Raymond. "They want $10K plus half." I said $0 plus her items. He wrote back 2 words that felt like a hand on my shoulder. "That's firm." Firm doesn't mean finished. It just means you're ready for the pushback. 2 days later, they accepted. We set a move-out window for Saturday. I left a spare key with the front desk and took my buddy's couch for the day. When I came back Sunday evening, the place sounded different. The couch was gone. So were the bar stools that never fit the counter, the floral prints, the bowl of decorative balls nobody ever touched. Sunlight reached farther across the floor with fewer things in its way. I stood in the doorway and listened to the echo, not haunted, just honest. Houses tell the truth when you let them. The kitchen felt wider without the clutter. The bedroom looked like it remembered how to rest. I opened the fridge, grabbed a water, and leaned against the counter. There's a clean emptiness a man has to learn to trust. Not loneliness, but room. Room to think, room to decide. I walked the rooms once, slow, hand on the wall like I was thanking a horse. Then I sat on the floor. Dinner was a large pepperoni and a cold beer, eaten cross-legged on hardwood that needed refinishing. The box warmed my knees. The TV sat on a crate. It felt like moving day and graduation day had a kid. I took a bite and listened to nothing in particular. A car passing, a neighbor's laugh, pipes settling. Freedom isn't fireworks. It's a slice that tastes better because nobody's judging how many you have. I looked around at the half-empty room and saw possibility instead of loss. Paint here, a real table there, a corner for a pull-up bar. I raised the bottle to no one and everyone. My uncle who helped without knowing the future. The version of me who finally chose peace over performance. It's mine, I said into the quiet, not as a boast, but as a promise. Finally. If you've ever sat on a floor with cardboard under your dinner and felt richer than you did at a crowded table, stick around. This is where life actually starts. After the last slice and the last swallow of beer, my phone buzzed. How are you? It was Quinn, not nosy, just plain words that fit. I leaned back against the wall, sauce on my thumb, and typed, good. Really good, actually. 3 dots blinked, then, I'm glad. Peace looks good on you. No heart emojis, no paragraphs, just a sentence that didn't ask me to perform. We traded a few small things, a joke about the pizza box as a coffee table, a picture of the blank wall where a guitar might hang. She sent back a thumbs up and, you've earned quiet. Men don't get told that very often. We're told to grind, to take it, to keep our heads down. My shoulders dropped an inch I didn't know I was holding. The apartment hummed, the kind of sound you only hear when nobody's trying to win the room. I set the phone face up and let the message sit in the light. I caught myself smiling. Alone. On purpose. The first week moved in beats, not speeches. Up before sunrise, laces double-knotted. A slow jog around the block where mailboxes wear their numbers crooked. Back home, windows open, October air clearing out the past like smoke. I scrubbed the stove till it squeaked, lined up spices like little soldiers, and tossed the pans that always burned eggs. Coffee, black. Dishes washed right away, not to prove a point, just because a clean counter calms a man down. I put fresh sheets on the bed and slept without flinching at midnight noises. After work, I walked instead of dodging conversations in my own kitchen. Neighbors waved. I waved back. No scripts, no tests, just normal. By Thursday, the place started smelling like lemon, not arguments. Friday night, I looked at the doormat and realized I wasn't stepping on eggshells anymore. Sometimes safety isn't a lock, it's the absence of tiptoeing. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed deeper and let quiet do its job. When the noise dies, needs step forward and introduce themselves. I learned mine by the way the day felt. Safety first, not wondering if a joke will turn into a fight, not counting how many silent treatments are left in the drawer. Then respect, the kind you give yourself when you keep promises nobody else sees. Eat real food, pay the bill on time, put the phone down. Then belonging, but not the kind that costs you your name. A nod from a neighbor, a text from a friend, a good job from a foreman who means it. And freedom, the hour after dinner when I pick up a guitar or don't, sit on the balcony or don't, and nobody keeps score. Men are told to aim for love first, but peace is the soil it grows in. One night I caught my reflection in the dark window and said it out loud to see if it fit. I'm enough for me. It did. The room agreed. Saturday afternoon I dialed my mother. She answers on the second ring like she's been sitting beside the phone all day. Hi, honey. We talked about the weather first, Midwest habit, then drifted where we both knew we were headed. I told her it was official, that I was sleeping better, that the apartment felt honest now. She listened without tapping a moral on the table. When I thanked her again for helping me handle Uncle Walt's inheritance right, the account, the paperwork, she got quiet in that proud way that makes you hear a smile. Your uncle believed in your steadiness, she said. So do I. We traded a grocery list of life, changed the air filter, checked the smoke alarm, eat something green. Before we hung up, she cleared her throat. Your dad would be proud, she said. It landed like a hand on my back, not pushing, just steadying. After the call, the apartment felt a little more like a house I'd built. Monday, I asked for 5 minutes with Rick, my supervisor. He's a straight-line kind of man, old ball cap, clipboard, a laugh that sounds like it's got sawdust in it. We stepped into the shipping office, fluorescent lights humming. I'm cutting back on weekend overtime for a bit, I said. I need to get my health right and finish some stuff at home. He nodded before I finished. You show up when you're on. That counts. I offered to cover one Saturday a month if the schedule got tight. He stuck out his hand. Deal. That was it. No guilt trip, no lecture about hustle. Just a leader who understands a man needs margins if you want him sharp at the edges. On the way back to the floor, I felt the word no settle into place like a tool finally in the right drawer. Boundaries don't make you smaller. They make you useful. I clocked in, pulled on my gloves, and got back to honest work. After that talk with Rick, I cleared a corner by the window and rolled out a mat. 2 dumbbells from a garage sale, a pull-up bar in the doorway, a cheap jump rope that whistles if you get the rhythm right. 3 days a week, no hero stuff. Presses, rows, squats, push-ups. 25 minutes where the only thing that argues with me is the weight. Sweat hit the mat and the old floorboards took it like rain. I tracked nothing but consistency. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Protein, water, bed by 10. By the end of week 2, my sleep got heavier, not the kind you collapse into, the kind you earn. One night, I caught myself in the bathroom mirror, shoulders a little squarer, jaw unclenched, eyes not darting around for the next fight. That's what struck me most. The eyes. They didn't look like a man dodging moods. They looked like a man steering his own ship. I wiped the glass with a towel and didn't look away. On a quiet Sunday, I pulled the acoustic from the closet. Dust came off like old stories. I sat on the floor, tuned by ear, and let my fingers find GCD like they were neighborhoods I hadn't visited since my 20s. The tips burned fast. Softness is what you grow when you stop using something. I played through it. 10 minutes turned to 40. A riff I used to mumble finally sat still in my hands. I looped it until the room learned the notes, then stitched a simple walk-up between the chords. It wasn't pretty yet, but it was mine. I looked down and saw the first hint of callus pushing through, rough as a promise kept. That's how healing works for men like me, not fireworks, friction. You push against what hurt and let the skin change shape. When the riff finally held from start to finish, I laughed out loud. Not loud enough for the neighbors, just enough for the walls to remember me. The guitar was still in my lap when the phone buzzed. Can we talk like adults? Then a longer one. You're being cold. I'm willing to work on things. Then the classic. I can change. I let the screen glow out on its own. The old me would have drafted a measured response lined with facts, angles, and exits. The new me knew better. Grown conversation needs 2 things, truth and respect. We had run out of both. I set the guitar down and walked to the kitchen for water. The phone buzzed again. Apology mixed with accusation, promise braided with threat, the usual knot. I didn't tug it. Doors don't stay shut because you yell at them. They stay shut because you turned the lock and walked away. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, turned off the lamp, and let the room go dark on purpose. Sometimes the strongest sentence a man can write is the one he never sends. The next afternoon, Harper texted. We're cleaning our group chat, she wrote, deleting the drama, owning what we did. I'm sorry. A second bubble, a screenshot of a message she posted to the thread. Not performative, just clear. We believed without asking hard questions. That's on us. I felt my jaw unclench. You don't need the world to apologize. Sometimes one person doing it right is enough. We met for 5 minutes outside Corner Brew. No folder this time. She looked regular, no makeup armor. We had a habit of blaming men for everything, she said, shrugging in a way that let the truth sit between us. It kept us from seeing people as they are. I nodded. I wasn't there to rub it in. Thank you, I said. 2 words, no garnish. She exhaled, laughed once, and said, "We're trying to grow up." We shook hands, the kind you hold for a second longer because it means something. I walked home lighter by a few pounds you can't see. That evening, Quinn called instead of texting. "Is this okay?" she asked. "Talking?" I stepped onto the balcony. "Yeah." She told me about 2 years of learning to trust simple things, being believed the first time, arguments that didn't turn into trials, a man who listened without keeping score. Therapy had given her names for bad patterns, but time gave her exits. "I used to see red flags everywhere," she said. "After my ex, I thought control wore a flannel and a wedding band." She paused. "Now I look for respect." It changed everything. Streetlights clicked on one by one like someone laying down a path. We didn't flirt. We didn't promise. We just talked like adults who knew the cost of pretending. Before we hung up, she said, "You're not cold, Ethan. You're clear." The word landed better than kind ever did. When the call ended, I stood there a minute, hands on the railing, and let that sentence settle where my doubt used to live. After that call, Quinn texted once more. "Short coffee, 10 minutes, no pressure." I stared at the message the way you look at a road you've driven 100 times, wondering if it feels different now. 10 minutes I could do. We met at the corner shop where nobody knows our story, sat by the window with 2 plain cups and no script. We talked like neighbors, work, sleep, the way October makes a street look honest. No fishing for praise, no digging for blame. When she asked how I was really doing, I said, "Better when it's quiet." She nodded. "Same." We didn't trade promises. We traded weather and the names of bands that still sound good in a truck. When the 10 minutes were up, we stood at the same time without awkward choreography. "Take care," she said. "You too," I answered. The relief wasn't fireworks. It was the feel of 2 adults not trying to fix each other. That calm stayed with me the whole walk home. Back at the apartment, I made a different kind of checklist. Cut the authorized card, change the bank passwords, 2-factor on everything. I opened a fresh notebook and wrote budget on the first line, not the kind that scolds you, the kind that tells you the truth. Rent, utilities, groceries, truck insurance, savings first, then the rest. I canceled subscriptions I never chose and kept the ones that make the week work. Drawer by drawer, I sorted papers until the stack shrank down to what mattered. When I closed the laptop, the room felt lighter by a weight you can't see, like fixing a slow leak that's been stealing miles from every tank. I stood at the window with a glass of water and said it out loud because saying it makes it real. No more leaks. Men know that feeling, when the drip stops and the silence sounds like money you get to keep. It wasn't about control, it was about respect, for the work, for myself. A week later, Connor mentioned it in the easy way guys pass along weather. Heard Drew's wife filed. The words didn't taste sweet, they just sat there. Innocent lunches hadn't survived the sunlight. I thought about his kids, about the way a house sounds when the routine breaks, shoes that don't sit by the door anymore, a TV that keeps playing to make up for missing voices. I didn't post, I didn't text, I just let the fact be a fact. You don't grow by keeping score on someone else's crash. You grow by driving your lane without swerving. I took a longer route home, rolled the window down, and let cold air scrub the last of the what-ifs. If anything, the news made me more certain I'd chosen the right road. Not because he fell, but because I finally stopped standing where I could be pushed. I said a quiet prayer for the kids and went inside. Dinner isn't heroic, but it keeps a man steady. Time did what time does. Word got around that Vanessa took a full-time retail job. Her social feeds slowed down. The circle that cheered new rules went quiet or drifted. That's not my victory, that's gravity. You spend long enough telling a story that doesn't match the receipts, and people step back to see the picture without the frame. On a Saturday, I saw her across the parking lot, arms full of boxes, hair pulled back, moving with the kind of purpose bills teach. We didn't speak. I didn't feel anger. Just that simple understanding life pays in exact change. Choices collect interest. So do apologies. I held the door open for a woman with a stroller and kept walking. It wasn't cold. It was clean. The wheel turns for all of us. Mine was finally rolling straight. If there's a lesson there, it's not complicated. Do the work, own your part, and let time sort what pride can't. I went home and changed a light bulb. That afternoon, I put on old jeans, taped off the trim, and opened a can of paint the color of good sleep. The roller made that soft hiss across the wall, each stroke laying down a layer of calm. I swapped the sagging sofa for a solid one that doesn't creak when you exhale. I hung 2 photos on the hallway. Mom smiling beside a garden hose. Uncle Walt in a cap with his hand on my shoulder the day I signed the papers. The apartment changed temperature without the thermostat. Warmer, not from heat, but from belonging. I drilled a simple shelf into the corner for a speaker and the guitar stand, set a small plant where the decorative clutter used to crowd. When I stepped back, the room didn't feel staged. It felt honest. Not perfect. Honest. I sank into the new couch and listened to the house settle around me like a dog finding its spot. For the first time, home wasn't a set. It was mine. Sitting on that new couch, I realized the hardest thing I did this year wasn't walking away. It was not yelling on my way out. I didn't slam doors. I didn't torch reputations. I chose facts and boundaries, and I let both do their job. Somewhere along the line, we got sold a cheap version of manhood. Louder, meaner, always proving something. But the men I respect don't audition. They state what's true, protect what matters, and leave the rest alone. That became my rule set. Speak plain. Keep records. Don't take the bait. If a conversation asks you to abandon your dignity, decline the invite. I thought about the night at that table, how quiet beat applause, how stillness held more power than any speech I could have given. That's when the sentence wrote itself, clean and final. Power isn't noise, it's clarity. It's a line on a map that says, this is mine, that is not. I stood up, rinsed my glass, and let the house answer with calm. The next evening, I walked the loop around the block, hands in my jacket pockets. The air carried that wood smoke smell that makes a street feel like a story you're still glad to be in. Mr. Alvarez waved from his porch. I waved back. A yellow lab rolled onto its back and kicked at the sky until its kid laughed. Leaves skittered across the asphalt like they were racing nowhere in particular. I passed the mailbox with the crooked numbers and thought about how many American nights look exactly like this. Quiet, ordinary, worth keeping. Men heal in motion. We measure progress by how the sidewalk sounds under our boots, by how often we look up instead of down. I caught my reflection in a storefront and didn't see a man who'd been left. I saw a man who had left what wasn't good for him. At the corner, I stopped, looked both ways like a kid taught right, and smiled at nobody. That was enough audience for tonight. Time did what paint does when you let it dry. Set. Papers came in a manila envelope with that courthouse smell. Signatures, dates, a stamp that made it real. Finalized. I slept like a truck after a long haul, engine off, metal cooling, no need to move. Work found its rhythm again. Orders out, hands steady, Rick's nod across the floor. The gym corner added quiet muscle. The guitar riff stopped tripping over itself. Bills got paid on time and stayed paid. I fixed the leaky faucet, oiled the squeaky hinge, learned the tiny sounds a place makes when it trusts you back. Every Friday I took the long way home and let the river eat the sunlight. In the mirror, the man who used to brace for arguments now braced for weather. Coat on, head clear, plans simple. I opened the envelope one last time, read the stamped page, and put it away with the other important things. 2 words landed true. Clean break. Connor texted first. Game at 7? I said yes before I checked the schedule. Blake showed up with pizza that tasted like high school and bad decisions, but better. We didn't perform wellness. We watched the game. We argued about play calling. We made fun of each other's teams like you're supposed to. Somewhere in the second quarter, Blake raised his bottle. To peace. We clinked without making a ceremony out of it. The laugh that came out of me wasn't polite. It was the kind that shakes your shoulders and makes the room feel 10 degrees warmer. For a long time I'd been surrounded and alone, talking careful, stepping careful, measuring every word against how it might echo later. That night, nothing echoed. It just landed and disappeared like it should. When they left, they slapped the doorframe like we used to, an old ritual that says, "We'll be back." The quiet that followed didn't swallow me. It held me up. Friendship will do that when you let it. The next morning I drew a line on the last battlefield. My phone. I unfollowed the drama, muted the mutuals who live for vague posts and side conversations. No subtweets, no for the record, no fishing for allies. If someone needed my side to like me, they could call. If they wouldn't call, I could live without their like. I turned off a few notifications I'd trained myself to hear like alarms. The apartment got quieter without losing any noise. That's when you know you made the right cut. Digital peace is still peace. It's the same muscle you build when you walk away from an argument that wants you small. I kept the apps that make a day smoother. Maps, weather, podcasts about old cars and better habits. Everything else went in a folder I don't open. And for once, I didn't explain the change to anyone. The screen dimmed, the room brightened, and I could hear the simple sounds again. Coffee, birds, my own breathing. With the phone quiet, I pulled a notebook from the drawer and wrote the date at the top like a promise. Then a headline. What I did right, what I did wrong. I kept it simple. Right. Kept records, stayed calm, chose peace. Wrong. Waited too long to set boundaries. Tried to win people who didn't want the truth. Mistook silence for love. I added a third list called gratitude and put my own name on it. Not because I'm perfect, but because I finally showed up for me. Then I sketched a 12-month plan. Finish the emergency fund, take a 3-day trip to the state parks, keep the gym rhythm, fix the truck's brakes before winter, call mom every Sunday, learn one full song on guitar start to finish. Nothing flashy, just bricks. I signed my name at the bottom like a contract. Ethan Cole. The pen dug a little groove into the paper, and I felt it in my chest. A beginning. The next week, a new hire named Marcus jammed his pallet jack between 2 rows and froze up. I recognized the look, like the warehouse just turned into a maze with no exits. I waved him over, showed him the angles, the way to use the back wheels to pivot tight without chewing up the shrink wrap. We moved 3 pallets clean, and his shoulders dropped. "Thanks, man," he said. "Didn't want to mess it up." I smiled because I could see myself a year ago, braced, careful, tired of guessing wrong. "You're not messing up," I told him. "You're learning." We set a simple system. Color tags for rush orders, a quick walkthrough before lunch, questions before mistakes. No speeches, just steady. On my way back to the line, I realized I'd just handed him what I wish I'd given myself sooner. Patience, a map, permission to not know everything. For a minute, the work felt lighter. Sometimes helping someone else is how you meet the man you're becoming. On Saturday, Mrs. Alvarez waved me over from her driveway. "We're doing a small barbecue tonight. Bring something if you want." I made a bowl of potato salad the way my mom taught me, mustard just enough, paprika like confetti, and walked it over at 6. No big speeches, just folding chairs, paper plates, and a Bluetooth speaker that kept losing signal. Kids chased each other with glow sticks. Someone asked about the game. Someone else recommended a cheap mechanic. I wasn't the divorced guy. I was just Ethan, the neighbor with the decent salad. When Connor dropped by later with a 6-pack, he fit right in. We laughed about how the Labrador treats the sprinkler like a mortal enemy. At some point, I looked around at the porch lights and easy conversations and felt something click back into place. That quiet, human weight of belonging. Not the kind you beg for, the kind that happens when you show up, bring a dish, and stay to stack chairs. Monday morning, I kept another promise and sat on the crinkly paper in Dr. Patel's office. Blood pressure, down. Resting heart rate, down. Sleep, better. He scrolled, nodded, and said the 2 words grown men don't hear enough. Keep going. We talked basics. Water, protein, walking, sunlight. Nothing fancy, nothing to post. Just the kind of boring that saves your life a little at a time. I realized on that table that safety isn't only locks and deadbolts. It's a body that trusts you again. It's a heart that doesn't sprint every time a phone lights up. On the way out, I scheduled the next appointment before I could talk myself out of it. I picked up groceries, eggs, chicken, apples. and skip the aisle where I make dumb midnight choices. Back home, I changed the air filter, checked the smoke detectors, and slept like a man whose roof doesn't leak. Health isn't a trophy, it's the ground under everything else. That night, I wrote one more list and pinned it to the fridge. My rules. 1. Honesty. Say the plain thing early, even if it shakes the room. 2. Boundaries. No maybe where a no belongs. 3. Mutual respect. If we can't both hold our dignity in a conversation, the conversation ends. 4. Reciprocity. Effort matches effort, care matches care. 5. Ownership. I carry my weight, you carry yours. I read them out loud to the empty kitchen, let each word find a chair. Then I added the line that ties it all together, the guardrail I should have bolted in years ago. If it's not mutual, I walk. Not as a threat, as a compass. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for even footing. 2 adults who can tell the truth without keeping score. I stuck the paper under a magnet shaped like a little truck and turned out the light. The rules didn't make me harder. They made me clear. The rules on the fridge didn't change the world, but they changed the way I moved through it. On my 44th birthday, I woke up in a home that finally sounded like me. The couch? Solid, no squeak. The table? Real wood that takes a coffee ring without complaining. My little gym in the corner, dumbbells, pull-up bar, mat rolled tight, weighted like a promise I keep. The guitar leaned against the wall, not hiding in a closet, strings in tune and ready. I grilled a steak on a pan that isn't meant to be pretty. Butter, salt, done. No candles, no speeches, just a plate and a chair that doesn't wobble. I stepped onto the balcony with a cold drink and watched the city exhale into evening. Porch lights blinked on, a train rumbled low, somebody yelled "Happy Birthday" down the block to someone else. I didn't need it said to me. I already felt it. I leaned on the rail and let it land, grown, steady, free. Around 7, Connor knocked with that rhythm only he uses. Blake followed, talking about a trade like it was a national emergency, pizza boxes stacked like blueprints for a good night. We didn't do therapy. We did chips and bad predictions. The TV threw light over the room. The couch took the hit like a champ. Nobody asked about Vanessa. Nobody needed the recap. In the second quarter, Blake missed an easy bottle-to-bottle clink and called a redo. Set the tone. No nonsense this season. We held the bottles up and clicked them just right. The laugh that came out of me wasn't careful or quiet. It shook something loose, the way a good stretch does after a long drive. We yelled at a busted coverage like we could fix it from my living room and argued about whether wings need ranch like it matters. It does. When they left, they slapped the door frame. Old habit, new meaning. I stood there smiling like a man who finally gets the joke. After the game, I answered 2 work emails, paid the water bill, and shut the laptop like closing a toolbox. A number I didn't recognize buzzed twice. I blocked it without ceremony. The kitchen light clicked off, the kind of sound you don't notice until you start counting little victories. I pulled a last beer from the fridge and stood at the sink, the cool bottle sweating into my palm. The apartment didn't hum to fill a silence. It just rested. I checked the lock, slid the window an inch to let in October, and set my phone face down on the counter. No last scroll, no fishing expedition for trouble. I took the beer to the balcony, watched one car roll a stop sign, and listened to the wind make a soft flag out of the curtain. When I came back in, I left a single lamp on. Not for fear, for calm. I sat on the edge of the bed and said it out loud so it would stick. Silence feels right. She wanted control. I found peace. That's the whole arc if you strip away the noise, tell the truth, set the line, keep your dignity. I didn't win by shouting. I won by walking. Respect isn't something you demand. It's what remains when you stop negotiating with disrespect. Honesty isn't a weapon, it's a light. And boundaries? They're not walls. They're doors you choose to close so better ones can open. I'm not promising a movie ending, just a steady life. Work that feels honest, a home that's mine, friends who show up, and a heart that doesn't sprint when the phone buzzes. If you've been where I was and found your way back, drop one word in the comments. Freedom. Then choose, right now, keep peace or repeat chaos. And if this story hits something true in you, subscribe and stay with me. We've got more to build. Title callback. One last time, so it sticks. Wife declared new rules. I declared a new life.